All right. Hello, everybody. This is Dustin, Puryear founder, Giant Rocket Ship. We empower people to do their best work. And I am doing my regular office hours for Autotask. And I am trying an experiment this morning using the web version of the webinar software. We shall see how it goes. If anybody has any issues hearing me or seeing anything, let me know. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. There was an interesting request that came up today. And give me a couple of seconds. What I'm doing now is just sharing my screen. Okay, nice. All right, so what we're going to be going over today, and I saw this in the MSP Geeks Slack, and also I think they posted it on the Facebook group for Autotask. It's kind of a topic near and dear to my heart. So they had a question: how do I send notifications for new tickets to Teams? So there's a couple of ways to do this. I'm going to take kind of the big scalable approach here. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to turn this into a mini series. And so I'm going to solve the same problem using different automation tools because not everybody uses Power Automate or Make or Zapier. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just hit each of these automation tools over the next couple of weeks and solve this problem. And the reason I'm going to do that is because at first it might seem like a simple thing, right? There's a couple of different ways you could do this. Some are very easy, but if we build a really good framework for how to accept new tickets and see that tickets have been changed, it really opens up your opportunities for what you can do with automation tools around Autotask without having to write code that hits the API. Right. So we're gonna tackle this, and again, every week we're gonna tackle it using a different automation tool. And so what I'm gonna do now, actually, I kind of went through it and prepped, and then I was working to undo it so we can do it from scratch. I personally am a big fan of making mistakes on webinars or fumbling a little bit. And I do that because I personally find it difficult sometimes to really grasp why something is being configured the way it is, unless I see how somebody kind of works their way to the solution. Because the reality, and look, I'm a developer, I owned MSP for 20 years. The reality is, even if you're a developer, sometimes you just have to kind of stumble through API documentation. Um, it's all bad, right? Nobody's got great API documentation or through a process or a workflow. And so I like to kind of stumble through it on purpose in the middle of a webinar. That way you can see, hey, if some how does somebody that already knows how to do this, like what are they going through to get to the solution? And that's going to really help you understand what's happening. So first, if anybody has any issues seeing my screen or hearing me, let me know. Again, I'm using the web version today. We shall see how that goes. If you have questions, put them in the Q&A and we'll tackle it that way. And I just want to make sure real quick, let's reshare this just to be safe. Picture in a picture's getting me. All right, window is going to be auto task. This one. All right, you should be seeing my auto task right now. I would just went through and made sure I didn't have any Q&A lined up, so we're ready to go. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be sending a message to Teams that there's been a new ticket created. And I'm going to do this using Autotask. And the automation tool I'm going to use today is going to be Make. Probably will use Power Automate next time. Maybe Zapier. My issue with Zapier is it's so expensive. Um, it's a decent tool. I find it a little cumbersome versus some of these other no code or low code tools. Um, you can kind of see it comes from a business first setting, and it gets really expensive really quickly. And you might not realize that if you haven't used anything else, but Zapier is expensive. Um, but I might still tackle that. So, anyways, let's do this. So let's go over some concepts, right? So if I have a ticket, let's just open this puppy up real quick. If I have this ticket and it's newly created, or we add a note or we edit it, we may want to trigger some type of activity external to Autotask. Well, how does that work? Right. So the first thing I'm going to think of if I'm working on this is, okay, what is the workflow solution in Autotask? Well, they're smart. They do the same thing that we do. They just call it workflows. And most enterprise apps have something like a workflow rules. And so I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, huh, all right, so I can trigger workflow rules and I can trigger it based on these events. I can update, send survey, transfer, no, extension call out, likely. Okay, so I have that. The other thing I can look at, because we're not done, is we could also send out email notifications. And it's possible we can have the emails going into Teams. That's one way. It's a little ugly, but I like this. I like what I'm seeing here about the call out, an extension call out. So Autotask has something, and it is not the, give me a second, let me just show you. It is not the webhooks. Webhooks you can only create on Autotask using the API. And webhooks, particularly the way that they're defined in most enterprise apps for how you can use it to track changes, it's actually very complicated. Because generally you want to use it as a subscribe model, and there's just a lot going with it. So I kind of cheated. Let's see if we can delete this. This is my Power Automate one. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're just gonna have, okay, so I can do this and it's going to send data. Now, one thing to note, and we're going to cheat a little bit here, is here's the default. I was doing post because that's what Power Automate likes to see, but I'm going to use get. So, okay, great. So whenever something happens, a workflow can trigger a ticket call out. So what I want to do next is I want to say, okay, well, in Autotask, the only way to trigger a ticket call out, and by the way, ticket callouts came from things where you wanted to integrate Autotask with external ORMM applications, is and we're gonna cheat a little bit. Ticket call out. I think I had one enabled for Power Automate when I was having that set up. We want to inactivate that one. Okay, so with the call out, I need to trigger an activity whenever a ticket is created, or in our example, we're going to also do notes and stuff just to make the debugging easier. But when one of these triggers happens, I want the call out to send the data somewheres. But the way you send a ticket call out, a workflow triggers it. The ticket doesn't directly trigger it. So I need to create a workflow that's going to trigger that. And then the next part is, well, where does it go? And so we're going to be using make here. And again, you can use other tools, and I'll probably address them. If there's a specific one you want me to tackle, let me know. And so this is going to be Autotask to Teams, right? So I'm in make. This is a very popular tool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a webhook. Webhooks. It's going to be Autotask inbound, number one, whatever. Right. And so now it's listening. And so let's go ahead and create that call out. And you'll notice we're kind of fumbling through this. We don't know what's going to get sent yet. I don't know. And so make call out. And so that's the URL. We're going to leave everything as is. And now we need to go trigger this puppy, right? So I'm going to say ticket call out. All right, so now I'm connecting the ticket call out to ticket activity, and you do that using workflows. Ticket call out make. So normally, if you just want to do for create it, you would just click create it. That said, for debugging, I don't want to have to create a ticket every time I want to test things. So I'm just going to put note added. And then instead of updating the ticket, I just want to do this, make call out. Okay, nice. And so this thing's waiting to be triggered. And what I'm going to do is, remember, I created a workflow for this. And that workflow is going to trigger also for a note. And you're going to see this just makes debugging 10 times easier, right? Now, with Rocket Ship, what we've determined is it can take up to 10 seconds for a call out to actually get triggered by Autotask. So just a heads up, it's not instant. And let's see what happens here. We're still waiting. There we go. Stuff's happening here. Successfully determined. So it did happen. Um, let's just see what we got here. Okay, so in make, let's just see if we can see. Uh-oh. So we're still kind of waiting on data. So let's do it again. Test number 2. And it should be triggering our workflow rule if we know what we're doing. Let's see, ticket call out make when created, edited. Yes. So sometimes you just have to kind of sit and wait. It should be happening. My issue right now is I don't see it actually triggering that workflow. Let's see, that has happened. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is what actually was sent. And so created, look at this, a ticket number and an ID. Can't ask for better than that. Like it's already ready for you. And so this was created, the last activity was on this date. Status of the ticket is new. So now we know what Autotask is sending in this call out. So it's going to be easy now, right? And so the next thing we're going to want to do is connect to our teams. And I'm going to do that using make. And we are going to, boom, send a message. Now, I'm totally fine showing you everything in our Office 365 because it's just a test tenant. So don't be frazzled if you see anything crazy. And today's the day of delays. And so now we're just waiting on Microsoft. I've done this before, so it's not an issue with Make or anything else, or even my computer. We're just kind of waiting on Microsoft to respond. And yeah, let's just go ahead and give it everything and my social security number. And okay, cool. So what team do we want it to go to? And then what channel, right? And for now, let's just send this because this isn't super useful on its own. But let's just get some data in there, right? And so let's run this once. And what I want to do is, and I'm going to show you a trick in a second. We are going to do another test, and then let's see what happens in another window. I'm going to bring up my teams, and I will show that to you momentarily. And let's see if anything actually has happened here. And you'll kind of see I was doing a little bit of testing with Power Automate before. And so let's do test. Oh, I did it already. And so look, we sent the ID to Teams, right? Slow clap. We are there. So the next thing I want to do is make this pretty. This isn't super useful. We're gonna cheat a little bit. Like in rocket ship in the code, we have to kind of craft messages based on um, the person's tenant, right? The web server or the web address used for that tenant. And we let you use templates and stuff, but we don't need to worry too much yet. What we're gonna do though is we're gonna make something pretty. Like that's not very good. And so let's do some markdown here. And you have a new ticket. Ticket number is, I think, what is bold? This is, oh no, this is bold, I think. It's going to be this, and I think I'm doing my markdown correctly. Status is new. I'm going to show you how to actually create a URL that's useful in a second. Um, and then what we need to do is we need to convert that markdown into HTML. Now, if you're not using markdown when you do this kind of stuff, my hat's off to you. But you're also crazy. You really should just be using markdown for all kind of templating stuff, and then just have it translate to HTML. Much easier to read it. It's kind of insane actually handcrafting HTML. It's just not really done anymore. All right, so content type would be HTML. Let's see if we can make this pretty. And again, what I like to do is I like to iterate through things, use existing data. Remember, I had put test two. Make doesn't have this enabled, so it just had queued up the work, and that is not correct markdown. All right, I'm gonna show you how I cheat with markdown. Is I just use Slack Edit. It's just a free version of a markdown editor. And let me be careful what I'm going to have in here. A lot of times we put announcements in here for our Beamer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this. And instead of trying to figure out the markdown myself, because I'm just not that smart, I'm going to just let this editor do all the work for me. Okay, so the asterisk should have been on top of. Oh, I just shouldn't have had spaces. Well, you know, shame on me. Now we know this is going to be good markdown. Now the question is, how do we get a link? Right? This is not a link we want. Now we can cheat a little bit because we know for our tenant, this is going to be the correct data, right? So we're going to have um, visit the ticket. Well, that doesn't make sense if we're doing HTML, right? So visit the ticket via this link. And so what we're going to do now is just that easy. So what we're going to do now, let's go copy over here. Well, we're going to cheat a little bit. Um, I know that in Markdown, how to do a hyperlink. It's this. What is it? I think it's is it? I might be doing this backwards, but that's okay. So I'm going to copy this over here. Where I can use a mouse. I believe this is correct Markdown. We shall find out shortly. And what we need to do is get rid of the space. And so let's see what happens. I'm super excited. All right, so we're going to do test 3 here. Let's be consistent. And so what should happen is Make should receive this via webhook. And I will tell you, I like Power Automate. The reason that Make is so popular, it's just one of several, but Power Automate is overly complex for some tasks. So like when you want to deconstruct like the encoded when you want to grab data out of a webhook, it's actually several steps to get the correct data. It's a lot of work. Um, I don't know why they make some of this stuff so complicated, but let's take a look here. I think this is going to be good. Boom. You have a new ticket. Boom, boom. I think I have my markdown backwards. So how does it do it? Via, oh, I did do it backwards. So it should be like this. I don't like what it did. And again, stumbling. And that should be good. So let's go ahead and save this and run the next one. Kind of just tweaking it. A couple, and I'll go through a couple of things that I would actually want to see in a production environment that are a little different than what we're doing. And so now we're going to receive this webhook. Should create proper markdown, which we're going to translate into HTML. Again, you should not be handcrafting HTML. That's very 1990s of you. Use markdown. That's literally what everybody else does. And I also like to sit here and wait for stuff to happen. There we go. Oof. There we go. Nice that is. So this is notification. Um, you can do some other things, right? You could do API call back into Autotask, grab more data. Um, you may not want to do that. The other thing is for your workflow rule, you may want to only do it for help desk, not for knock, backup alerts, that kind of stuff. The other thing is my personal preference, I would not dump this into your general chat and Teams. I would have a separate chat, maybe either one that's just looked at for new tickets or that's specific to kind of high volume automated messages, because this can be overwhelming and it can really make it difficult to use this for effective communication. This is how you would do it. Look, it only took several minutes. We created the workflow, which was very easy. We created the ticket call out. We connected everything with the glue using Make, and now we're pumping our data into Teams. So I think next week or in the next webcast, we'll do a Power Automate. Um, may tackle Zapier, may try a couple of other ones. Maybe we'll handwrite some JavaScript or some PHP or something. Maybe a little Rust. I don't know. We're going to try a couple of different methods so you can see how this works. Um, and that way you can have a video specific to the tool set that you are using. But here we are. We have that solution done for you. All right. I hope you found that helpful. Have a good one. And by the way, be remiss, and my marketing people would fuss at me. Dustin Puryear, Giant Rocket Ship. We empower people to do their best work. Have a good one.